down, and why exactly does he need to turn it down?
Tone. Just to
tone it down. In whose favor is this?
In his favor, actually, because
favor.
sometimes critics don't always make very fantastic leaders. That's also my view. So he just needs to tone it down. We know you're an activist. You know you're fighting for injustice and all, but can you be more, I don't know, presidential? He just tone it down and just, relax.
Right.
We get his message.
Professor Kila, do you agree with Fumi that activists generally don't make great leaders?
Oh, no, I don't agree. I mean, so there's no logical sequence. There is no activists will make good leaders or activists will not make good leaders. It's all random. You can't really tie it together. They could make, they might not make. No. But I also think that Fumi's position is logical, but it's an optional choice. To say if you want to be presidential, you have to act presidential. It will be so if all those who have been president so far have done great things. But if you come there thinking, so far so bad, let's change the whole thing, then you don't have to be like them.
Right.
In a way, you're saying, let's move away. And I think, and this is the point, Sowore's candidacy is one that's saying, let's move away from how it's been done so far.
Right. Do you necessarily have to be less of an activist to be presidential, or can both of them exist in one person?
I think they can. I mean, you don't have to, really be one. Because what is an activist? You're active in your views, and you're committed and involved in your ecosystem, in what's going on around you. Whatever it is, whether it's politics, economical, gender-based, or anything at all. You're part of it. One does not exclude the other. I do think, though, and here's the thing, I do think, though, that activists tend to be more radical. Maybe that's Fumi's point. Whereas governance is a more practical, prosaic, process-led things. Hence the need, and here we go back to your sort of right idea, maybe you should learn to be calmer from the beginning. But you don't have to. It's a gamble. This is the paradox of politics, that in reality it's not as logical as people think, because we're choosing people based on anybody above 18 voting for them. So you can't really set a standard to say you want to be CEO, these are your requirements. It doesn't work that way. It has to do with charisma, communication, connection, and a lot of things that is not what is required for corporate leadership, for example.
Let's check this, talk about this issue that for a lot of people, is important. In the past year, Omoyele Stephen has had a lot of run-ins with the government. He's been to court, he's been to prison. Do you think that all of the legal troubles that he's had, that he's been involved in with the federal government, would color how people will see some of what he's going to say this evening?
Correct. So the challenge that Omoyele Stephen will face is that he's being stereotyped, right? You mentioned the activist, you mentioned the radical person. Those are two words that jumped from her and from him. So he's being stereotyped, and because he's not a newbie, what I expect from him is to show that, hey, yes, I can be very animated, I can be very radical, I want things to happen, but I can be measured, I can be savvy. For me, it's not so much of what he should say, right? It's how he's saying it. Do you understand? Nigeria's demography, our electoral map is changing.
But regardless of how he says what he's going to say, regardless of how accurate they might be, you've just alluded to the fact that he's been stereotyped here in this room. And now you can imagine what 200 million other Nigerians are saying. So no matter what he says, how do you think the fact that he might be stereotyped, would taint the reception of his message, no matter how right they are?
So here's the thing, there's a thin line between being disruptive and being destructive, right? So he definitely wants to change the status quo, but how he wants to go about it is where people have a problem with, right? Nobody's really saying that Omoyele Stephen is not the best thing since sliced bread. He has his own brand of politics, right? But here's the thing, I believe in meeting Nigeria where it is before you talk about where it can be. Do you understand? Person of faith, Bible says, thou shalt say unto this mountain. There's no cognitive dissonance. You must admit that there's a mountain. Yeah. The cognitive dissonance, the intellectual dissonance, no, I don't want, no, Nigeria is bad. No, you must engage the system. Do you understand? You can't say, oh, I'm anti the system, but the system needs to make you president. So you must lean to, like you said, tone down that, and almost like, it's not so much that you are not, you are condemning
or some of the issues that Sowore have been involved in, with the federal government this year, might in some way affect how Nigerians receive his message?
Well, I think it will affect it. I mean, there's no doubt, what you talk about, chronicle, is history, is a collection of facts. He's been arrested, he's been accused, he's been detained. Those who are informed are going to look at that. You talk of 200 million people. Out of the perhaps 200 million people, maybe 100 million people in reality, out of those millions of people, you'll be shocked that a lot of people might not even be aware. So they will get to know that today. The ones who are aware of it will have that somewhere in their mind. But I think, whether it's stereotyped or not, I think it's a gamble. Yeah. I think he needs to stick to his message. If you want to give him an advice tonight, perhaps what you should do is that with all the stereotype, with all the activism, this is the night you should come out and show people that I'm not just passionate, I'm also competent. The way to do that is to use facts and figures, hopefully verifiable ones. Right. To actually break it down and show people that I'm not just angry, I also have the solution. Because I think so far in the history of Nigeria, we've had this problem where we have good but incompetent people. Some appear competent, but they tend to be morally challenged. So somehow we're struggling with this balance which we need. Mm-hmm. And it's an opportunity, for him to show that, yes.
Right. So, one thing that cuts across a lot of the candidates we've seen, so far that have expressed interest in this top job is the approach that they've taken to, their campaigns. This is not Sowore's first time, throwing his hat in the ring. Having watched watched his moves in the past few months since we entered the campaign season, for me, do you see any, difference, in his approach to campaigning this season than what he did, the last time out?
I don't see it. And so that goes back to one of the reasons why I say that he needs to take off the guard, because in the last elections he had 33,953 votes, about 0.1% of the entire votes. He needs to show to us what he's doing differently, this time.
So you think the campaign message last season and this time out, I
feel like it's still the same. Going back to that, your question about how people receive him, so it's very instructive for me, like during the NSARS, for example, if you remember, he tried to participate, and over and again, the protesters refused to have him on. For some people, because I covered the protest, for example, I had to go back and ask them. For some of the people I asked, they said, look, he has a way of owning this thing, and they didn't want it to make it look like, oh, this is, so they didn't want that. So talking about, going back to that question about how it's for some people, like, oh, he went to prison, he feels our pain, and then, that might endear them. And some other people, like, what, we don't want to have anything to do, with this guy. So like Professor Kela said, really, you never can say there's a one-size-fits-all to how your president should be. It's a paradox. It's politics, so we never can tell. But for me, I haven't seen anything different from the last time he campaigned as well.
So in terms of what the messaging will be from Sowore this evening, what are your thoughts on what Nigerians should expect from him?
So for me, I think the advice I will give Sowore is that the biggest voting bloc are actually the most animated. Do you understand? You have been doing this for a long time. Your messaging has to cut across, right? She mentioned that this kind of generation of voters, they want leadership to be democratized. They don't want somebody to be the face. They don't want messiahs. So they want to feel like they own your message. But he feels like we should buy into his message. When I mean we, I'm talking metaphorically, right? So I think he should realize that, hey, I'm just one of you. I'm coming to you. Yes, I've gone through a lot personally, but that does not make me entitled to leadership. Criticism, going to what Professor Kela said, criticism does not equal competence. You should come and say, hey, I own an organization, a media organization, I've employed people, I'm successful, I've built this. You should show his capacity for governance. That's why I say stereotyping. He must deconstruct himself in a way that, okay, yes, you know me for this, but this is a part of me, because your supporters alone cannot make you president. Mm-hmm. Even the ruling party, they know they cannot beat them chairs. I see all these things on social media, it's in the bag. Nobody can beat them chairs and say, I've gotten it. Because your supporters alone can't make you president. So you must reach out to people outside the box. Even if I'm party A, there's some people that don't like your radical message. Some people want it conservative. Nobody thinks you change your messaging. That would be disingenuous. But realize that a lot of people need to make you president. So I think you should reach out to those people, make the effort. Even if they don't agree with you, they can see the effort. Right. That's what I think.
Right. And in terms of, what your Nigerians, what your advice to Nigerians will be this evening as they watch, Sowore try to convince them that he's the best person to occupy Aso Rock next. what do you think? How do you think Nigerians should sort of
view it?
View his
and
message.
assess him, you guys.
Yeah.
I think Nigeria should look at him and say, can this guy be a CEO? Look at him and think, has this guy got what it takes to be the CEO of, company Nigeria? And maybe they should think that, okay, if he can't be CEO, what else can we offer him? Like a proper job interview. Somebody comes to say you want to be CEO. And sometimes I look at them, because I do recruitment, and I think, no, you can't be CEO. Perhaps you can be director of corporate affairs. Or perhaps you can be in charge of logistics. I think Nigerians should think that. But you see, but that said, one of the most fascinating things about the candidate Sowore for student of politics is that it allows us to identify three kinds of candidacy. There is a candidate who comes to make a statement.
Correct.
There's another candidate who tries to win.
Okay.
Then there's a candidate who will win whatever it takes, who will do whatever it takes to win. Like all human factors, it is never just one. It's a bit of everything. I think Sowore is more of make a statement and try to win, but heavily make a statement kind of candidacy. And that affects everything. It is possible to argue, and I've noticed this, that he comes to the table saying, not really messianic, to say that, look, if I become president, I will help Nigeria. If I don't become president, I have another life. But I think it's good for me to become president.
Right.
I think it's important for Nigerians to look at Sowore in that key as well.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the responsibility of going beyond the tactics of candidates is also responsibility of voters.
Right. You can join this conversation wherever you are in the world by tweeting at the candidates NG. You can also use the hashtag the NG the candidate, hashtag NG the candidates. That's how you can join the conversation in the studio this evening from wherever you are in the world. In just a moment, Kadaria Ahmed will sit with Omoyele Stephen and his running mate Mr. Haruna Magashi of the African Action Congress, and they will attempt to convince you to vote them into Aso Rock in February 2023. Fumi, let's come back to you and just piggyback off what Professor Kila said earlier, that people like Sowore come in to make a statement and to win. What do you make of that,
I
assessment?
totally agree. But like he said, he's tilting more to making a statement. He's like, he's everywhere fighting everybody and everything.
So if you think he's here to make a statement, right?
Yes.
What would a coming into this game to win strategy look like?
Okay, so first of all, like I said, the activists say, don't make it look like you're fighting. Even all of us that want to vote for you, you're fighting everybody. We're all stupid. We don't know anything and all of that. Just calm down. And then, because for me, one of the things I even wrote here was that I don't even understand what his ideology is. What exactly is he selling to us? Everybody has this. That's for me. I don't get it. I don't get it. So I think if he's able to just calm down, and maybe tonight I'll get to listen and understand, what exactly his ideology is. It's totally different from what the other candidates are offering. Then I appreciate his struggle. I understand where he's coming from. He has been doing this for university days. He was a student union leader and everything. And there are pictures of him with MKO. So yes, he has risen through the ranks and paid his dues. But I don't get, so he just needs to sell himself more and in a more combative way.
What do you think people like Sowore do for the Nigerian consciousness?
So for me, Sowore is an embodiment of rebellion, right? So he's literally like, I will not kowtow to the system. It reminds me of Fela a lot. Do you understand? Right. When Fela is not trying to sell out stadiums, the MTD, Madison Square, it's not that you say, I no go agree. Do you understand? Do you understand? He's trying to let you know, I know send the government. He's not trying to sell out the O2 like Burna Boy. Do you understand? He's not looking at streaming numbers. He's like, me, I no go agree. And people love him because he is the embodiment of that rebellion. But like I said, beyond that, we know what he's against. What is he for?
Yeah.
Do you understand? I know you don't like this, you don't like that. I'm sure I can almost place a bet. Experiment. So we want to know why are we staking out our collective destinies for you.
Yeah.
So I think that's what you should double down on.
If Sowore doesn't make it as president, would you still love to see him in government?
I think he's a candidate. Personally, I'm going to say the very candidate. He's a candidate of the future, right? Is the demography for him is not here. May not have that critical mass, but he's important for the demography because he deepens demography. He has that. He's the kind of person that has the kahunas for uncomfortable conversations where everybody's shining for. Sowore will say it and he doesn't care.
True.
Do you understand? So there's a Sowore in the future Nigeria. I don't know that he's here there. He may have voters, but critical mass, I doubt it.
What do you think Sowore does for the consciousness of the people?
Well, I think it's good for Nigerian conscience. You know, it stimulates it, and sometimes it embarrasses a lot of people. It shows limits, it shows possibility. I think it's good for the conscience, but then again, you know, conscience is not political,
right?
But it's a strong element of what we do,
right? And look, for me, regardless of the outcome in February 2023, what would be, in your opinion, the biggest lesson from seeing people like Sowore, go from activist to actually throwing their hats in the ring and saying, look, send me to do this job?
The biggest lesson is to show that, anybody can, as long as you're Nigerian, you can, run for, president, you can run for any office, even though I always say that, let's come from the bottom up. It's just like even in any corporate society, you're not going to just bring somebody and put the person in. But he's outspoken, he's spoken out his mind, he has said stuff like he's going to overhaul the entire constitution. So don't be afraid, dare to dream, but I don't know how to say, like, yes, there should just be a balance, because you see, something very instructive that Professor Killer said is that, yes, you need the numbers, like how you started talking about Fela, you said streaming and numbers, but you need those numbers to win today. So in as much as you don't care, you need those numbers. So let it be a lesson for people that are going to run. Be activists, be in the news, be everywhere, fight everybody, but calm down. You will need those numbers. I don't think it's going to turn around and become votes for you. Right. In Nigeria.
When you actually talk of these numbers, right? How are you projecting his core voting block is distributed across the country?
So again, Professor Killer made a very instructive point. A lot of people, and I'm saying this respectfully to his voters, a lot of people voting for Sowore are not voting for him to win. They're voting to make a statement. They're going to defiance. That's what I see. That's the word, defiance. Do you understand?
So you don't think that it is spread? You don't think that there's geographical spreads to it?
It doesn't have it. 93 million people on the voting register, right? So you need a critical mass. You need 25% in 24 states, right? So you cannot. Look at the guys that are leading. Do you understand? They are doing a lot of work, leg work, and all that. So yes, you might have funds, but Nigeria is allegedly 200 million people, but a lot of people have to buy into your message. A lot of people have to they must see themselves in you. There must be a strategic self-interest without being even coy. Do you understand? People say, you know what, he has not talked to me, but it's in my interest to vote for Sowore. Until he gets to that point, he may not be president.
Do you agree that Sowore has a more ideological spread than geographical spread?
Well, I think so, yes. I think those who are with him, going to vote for him, are working for him, are people who are informed, they're activists. They tend to be more radical than the average voter. I think, here's the thing, we're running the first past the post system, a majoritarian system. If we're running a proportional system, if we're running a proportional parliamentary system, a candidate like your coalition will be a very attractive one, because you just need 4 or 5% of the vote to matter. And sometimes people will strategically push you so that you can push certain things. The bloc that wants to change everything, it could be gender-based, it could be... There is a good example of a party in Europe. Italy started from Radical Party, where one of their major things was to legalize drugs. And, generally they got their 6-7%, got into parliament, and then they influenced other things. But the kind of system we're running does not allow that. But you see, this said, we should not confuse Sowore with some motivational speaker that just thinks I have followers on Twitter and I'll get votes.
I just need a yes or no from you. Do you think Sowore is populist in his messaging? Say yes or no.
Yes.
You think he's populist? Do you think he is?
Very. It's an outlier.
Do you think Sowore is populist in his message?
Outlier, he said.
Outlier, you say?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, look, that's the conversation on the Pundit Show today. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. From Najif, a journalist, Onfom Eyang, a public affairs commentator, and Professor Anthony Kila, public affairs commentator. Thank you too for sharing your thoughts with us. In just a moment, Kadaria Ahmed sits with the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, Mr. Omoyele Stephen Sowore, and his running mate, Mr. Haruna Magashi. I am Chika Agu, and this is the Candidates 2022.
University of Ibadan, alma mater to great thespians, novelists and politicians of the great nation of Nigeria. The University of Ibadan is located in Oyo State, southwest Nigeria. It was founded in 1948 and was one of many colleges within the University of London. Becoming an independent university in 1962, the University of Ibadan is the oldest degree-awarding institution in Nigeria. The University of Ibadan has contributed to the political, industrial, economic and cultural development of Nigeria. Among this notable group are Nobel Prize winner Wole Soyinka, Chinua Achebe, a novelist and author of Things Fall Apart, Abdul Ganiyu Abdul Razak, a lawyer and former president of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and so many more. Bayelsa is an oil-producing state in the south-south region of Nigeria. It was created in 1996 by the then military administration. Bayelsa has also produced prominent people such as Ben Murray Bruce, a businessman and senator, Dakore Egbusin Akonde, a Nigerian actress. She is an ambassador for Amnesty International, Timi Dakolo, musician and businessman, and so many more. Recently, Bayelsa has been seriously affected by the flooding situation that has plagued Nigeria. This has seen many lose their lives, properties, and businesses. The University of Abuja, the prestigious University of Abuja, nestled in the Federal Capital Territory in the north-central part of Nigeria, was established in 1988 but officially started running in 1990. It was set up as a dual-mode university with mandate to run conventional and distance learning programs. The university offers diploma, undergraduate and postgraduate degree programs. Popular persons who have graduated from this institution are Kanayo O. Kanayo, actor, filmmaker and lawyer; Iman Suleiman Ibrahim, former Deputy General of NAPTIP; Muhammadu Bako III, a first-class Emir of New Karshi in Nasarawa, and many more. The University of Port Harcourt. The University of Port Harcourt is located in Chuba, in Rivers State, in the south-south geopolitical zone of Nigeria. It was established in 1975 but was given university status in 1977. The University of Port Harcourt was ranked the 6th in Africa and the 1st in Nigeria by Times Higher Education in 2015. This university has graduated several notable Nigerians who are spread across several industries. Some of these people are Rita Dominic, actress. Alex Oti, it has promised to continue churning out great students year in and year out. Coal City University Enugu. Named after the state's slogan, Coal City University is a not-for-profit private university nestled in Enugu State in the southeastern geopolitical zone of Nigeria. Established in 2016 with 10 faculties to its name, Coal City University currently has over 800 students. The university prides itself on offering an excellent learning experience for students, informed by up-to-date research and facilitated by a high-quality learning environment with multimedia classrooms, ultra-modern laboratories, and a modern library. Coal City University Enugu, though young, organizes an annual essay contest for secondary school students in an effort to increase awareness of current global issues among the young population. University of Maiduguri, popularly known as UNIMAID, a university located in Maiduguri, the capital of Borno State, nestled in the northeastern part of Nigeria, created in 1975 by the federal government of Nigeria. UNIMAID enrolls about 25,000 students across all programs. This prestigious university has seen notable persons such as Bala Mohammed, a renowned minister and senator, Yemisi Akimbobola, a renowned journalist, Ahmed Lawan, the president of the Nigerian Senate, and so many other notable names. Bayero University, Kano, initially called Ahmadu Bello College, this citadel of education was renamed Bayero University, Kano. It was established in 1960 by the Northern Nigeria Ministry of Education. It is located in Kano State in northwestern Nigeria. Known for their great research work, Bayero University Kano research centers include the Center for Advanced Medical Research, the Center for Infectious Diseases, the African Center for Excellence in Population Health and Policy, the Center for Gender Studies, the Center for Dryland Agriculture, the Center for Biotechnology Research, the Center for Renewable Energy, and so much more. Notable alumni of the university include Ahmed Adamu, petroleum economist and lecturer, Moses Ochonu, historian and author, Ahmad Sani Yerima of Zamfara State, and so many more. University of Ibadan, alma mater to great thespians, novelists and politicians of the great nation of Nigeria. The University of Ibadan is located in Oyo State, southwest Nigeria. It was founded in 1948 and was one of many colleges within the University of London. Becoming an independent university in 1962, the University of Ibadan is the oldest degree-awarding institution in Nigeria. The University of Ibadan has contributed to the political, industrial, economic and cultural development of Nigeria. Among this notable group are Nobel Prize winner Wole Soyinka, Chinua Achebe, a novelist and author of Things Fall Apart, Abdul Ganiyu Abdul Razak, a lawyer and former president of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and so many more.
Good evening and welcome to the second in a series of 6 town halls that bring the major contenders for Nigeria's presidency face to face with the electorate that will decide who gets the top job. Tonight, we're in conversation with the candidates of the African Action Congress Party, the AAC.
Omoyele Stephen, born February 1972, is a human rights activist and pro-democracy campaigner who founded the online news agency Sahara Reporters. In August 2018, he founded the Africa Action Congress Party and ran as his presidential candidate, losing in the 2019 Nigeria general election. As a student activist, Mr. Sowore took part in multiple demonstrations that led to his arrest and detention on many occasions. He was also involved in the demand for a democratic government to take over from military rule on June 12, 1993. This resulted in several arrests, detentions, and life-threatening treatment by government officials. Haruna Magashi, his running mate, is a lawyer and businessman from Kano State with major interests in several industries. He holds a first degree in law from the University of Maiduguri and a master's in business and commercial law from Bayero University, Kano.
Welcome, Mr. Sowore and Malam Magashi, and thank you for saying yes to our invitation to join this town hall.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time. Now, a few things to note before we start. In addition to people in the room who will be asking questions of the candidates we have here today, we have 6 remote locations across Nigeria's 6 geopolitical zones in 6 Nigerian universities. And over the course of the next 2 hours, we will hear from all of them. We've also collated questions sent to us via email and our social media platforms, and we'll try and get answers to as many of them as possible from our 2 candidates. Finally, we will also try and take live questions from these platforms. It is also important that people asking questions state their names clearly and be on point, as we must be mindful of time and ensure that we get as many people as possible to be part of the conversation. Now, without wasting any more time, I'd like to dive straight in. This is your second attempt to, convince the Nigerian electorate that they should make you president. Has anything changed, particularly in the message that you are bringing to the electorate, given that 4 years has elapsed since you last contested?
Yes, I want to say good evening to Nigerians and everyone watching all over the world. I was a candidate for the African Action Congress in the 2019 election. And in those days, there were several other younger candidates who contested with me on the opposite side of the context, and of course a number of our ancestors also contested in that election. But I would say that now, which was to deal with the election irregularities and bring to the attention of Nigerians the need to focus towards a total liberation for the people of the country, because elections had failed them. I wanted to disagree with you, and I will disagree with you that I lost the election. You cannot lose what did not happen. That election was totally a fraudulent election, and it was an election in which numbers were allocated to us, the other candidates, and the winner was assigned.
There are many who would argue that actually what you did was unethical, because you ran for an election, and when you lost it, you decided that you were going to start a revolution.
The most ethical thing that any human being can do is to aspire towards liberation. And you cannot allow your oppressors to limit your liberation agenda by conforming with their rules and laws and regulations on how to conduct your struggle for total liberation.
Okay, so let me ask a quick question. Now that you are contesting again, is it because you are now convinced that the process has been sanitized and that you will get free and fair elections?
No, before a revolution happens, a number of or a series of events must happen. And part of our struggle is to get the system to give way so that our people can have a fresh lease of life. Yes, the system that is putting our people in bondage. And in most cases, because we are peaceful and also very...
So a revolution is not a violent revolution?
It has never been designed as a violent revolution. It is the oppressors that determine the nature and character of revolutions anyways.
So based on that experience of 4 years ago and where we are today, is your messaging changing? Is what you are offering to Nigerians different? How are you going to try and ensure that you have a different outcome this time around?
The messages have not changed because the objective conditions of Nigerian people haven't changed. As a matter of fact, things got worse.
That's what I was about to say.
After 2019. The only difference in our message is the urgency of now, and that people should understand that this next election is a make or my election. And I know people hear that all the time, but I always said, and I'll repeat here, that Nigeria is living on borrowed times, and these elections, if they do not encompass the wishes, aspirations, and the desires of Nigerian people to see a different path in terms of governance, that revolution you are running away from is upon you.
Okay, and now I will get an opportunity to dive into what it is specifically you're offering Nigerians. We'll look at your manifesto.
Are you going to ask again after you knew that in 2019?
But I wanted an opportunity for you to perhaps get to know your running mate, because you've changed your running mate from the last person that...
I changed from a doctor to a lawyer.
Right, why?
Because there will be a lot of prosecutions.
So you're expecting him to help with the legal...
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Madam Magashi, lovely to meet you,
Thank you
for the first time. But I'm just wondering, what is it about this particular party that made you decide you wanted to pitch your tent with the party and also Mr. Sowore?
Yeah, I've been a lawyer for the past 17, 18 years, and all through I've been human rights activist, to the extent that I hold human rights cases for Mr. Femi Falana, the renowned human rights lawyer, most decorated human rights lawyer in Africa.
So I'm struggling to hear you, and I'm wondering whether that is the case with people in the room, and I just wanted to sort of call the attention of the technical people. I'm because there's no point having a conversation if people can't...
We would accuse you of...
bias, I know.
Certainly.
So please, can we get someone to sort of sort out the volume issues we seem to be having? Maybe you could help me by raising your voice while they try to sort it out. I'm sorry I interrupted, but it's better you get heard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the most important thing.
Yes.
I'm saying since I became a lawyer, I've been running human rights campaigns. Actually, I'm an activist. I got to the extent that I hold cases for Mr. Femi Falana, the most decorated human rights lawyer in Africa, in the northern part of Nigeria, particularly Katsina, Kano, and other that axis. So this party, African Action Congress, has shown itself that it is an avenue that fight for the masses. that fight for the human rights of the masses, actually. So it runs along the line that I do.
Your convictions.
Yes, I'm convinced that joining the party and joining the politics will help and raise the standard of the activism I do. So I am still in the legal activism, human rights activism, and a politician now.
Okay, and I was going to wait to ask you this question, but because it has sort of come up, I think I would dive straight into it before going into policy. You mentioned doing work with Mr. Femi Falana.
Yes.
Someone who we all, feel was your long-time supporter. Him, as well as one or two other people like Dele Fasoranti, who were sort of known to be your supporters, seem to have sort of shifted their allegiance to the Labour Party. Do you think this is going to have any bearing on your ability to win elections or the way you even run them, given that these are sort of big figures with big names?
Well, I've been in touch with Femi Falana up to yesterday, and I also heard him speak on a TV show last week, and he said he has not endorsed the Labour Party.
Right.
He's a lawyer to the Nigerian Labour Congress. That is not the same thing as being a lawyer to the Labour Party or supporting the candidate of the Labour Party. So you want to check your record. But with regards to Dele Farotimi,
Dele has come out to openly say that.
I actually never met Dele Farotimi until I came out of detention.
Right.
But we realized that he was at the Lagos State University and I was at Unilag when we were fighting for democracy, which is right to decide who he would choose for election. He made it very clear, in all fairness to him, that his own position is not driven by ideology, that is driven by the need for fairness. He believes that a Southeasterner should be the president of Nigeria at this time.
Okay. Yes. And now that we sort of set the foundation for that, I'll ask one question and then we will open it up to the audience, because again, it's a town hall. It's not a Q&A between yourself and I. My first question is to ask you, given the sort of economic issues Nigeria is facing at the moment, do you have any sort of underlying principle, philosophy, strategy that sort of forms the thrust of the policies you will pursue to solve our economic issues if we elect you as president?
Yes. And our policy, first and foremost, ideologically, we are on the socialist side of things. So we believe that the people of Nigeria should be the beneficiary of Nigeria's resources, not a few. And secondly, it is that we believe that an economic system that we have been running, especially since the 80s, which is driven by the Bretton Woods institutions, the World Bank and the IMF and their likes, is not the right way to go, because that's what ruined our industries. These are the economic policies that put us where we are today, and we want to change course and direction with regards to that. The reason is that I have the exposure. I know that there is no IMF policy in the United States of America where IMF offices are based. There must be a reason why they don't want them to be operating within the country. Just as you are not likely to find a VOA station and cable in the US, but Africans are all over the place listening to VOA, because these are propaganda outlets for them to advance their own foreign policy intentions. So we will change course completely. And the other part is, of course, change of personnel. In coming to government, you are not going to have a Central Bank of Nigeria that's a glorified bureau de change.
And I think because we need to sort of dig deep into sort of the specifics of what you're doing, I will take a small break, allow others to join this conversation first, and then we can dive into the details if they don't come up in the course of answering questions from our audiences. So we start with the people in the hall. Anyone who has a question, could you please introduce yourself and then ask your question? And we start, the man in yellow. Yes, please.
All right. I greet my potential president and potential VP, Moses Adebayo. I know you to be a radical, Omoyele Stephen, but you are in my
Okay, I'm going to ask you to just hang on a minute. Could you do a favor for me? There's a bit of an echo, so drop the mic down.
All right.
And then speak, yes.
So I welcome you to my world, Mr. Sowore. You need me now. And you have to convince me why I shouldn't or should vote for you. Babangida and his policies, sir, practically destroyed the middle class. I'm a very proud product of the middle class. Not very rich, but not too poor. But what will you do radically, since that's your very nature, to bring about that bridge again? Because in our world today, Nigeria is just a case of extremes. The minimum wages, let me use that euphemism now for those downtrodden, and the maximum wages. How is back and Nigeria economy is restored? Thank you.
Thank you. So the middle class, we'll take maybe 2 more before we come back to the candidates, because it's just more efficient. Anybody else? Not yet? Okay. Maybe we dive into that question.
Yes, you know, the middle class already left, because one of the things they did to Nigeria was to ruin the middle class. So we now have only 2 classes left. Those who are left behind, who have nowhere to go, can't figure out where to go, and those who own the country. And where
do you belong?
I belong.
Because if I look at sort of objectively, you don't fit into either, right?
I don't fit into any, because, of course, we are special classes of people. Who is, you know, we're everywhere except at the top, because we're always with the masses. But the most important thing here is that Nigeria's main problem is that all of us deal with a pie. And the pie also has for 2 classes, you know, and the higher class, we do socialism for them, you know, we give them waivers, they earn maximum wage, they get special interest rates, they get even special exchange rates in this country. And for the lowest class, there's nothing for them. We pay them minimum wage. And you see in Nigeria, even when you talk their own economics, they calculate fiscal policy through the macroeconomic system they put in place. They talk about monetary policy, which is exchange rate, central bank, and then there's one policy in macroeconomics they never talk about, and that is the purchasing power parity, which is what exactly determines the well-being of the populace. And that is where the middle class actually stays.
So in specific terms,
what
how
it
would
means
you
is that,
improve on that? What would you do?
So what we do to improve upon that is first and foremost to restore things that will make the country start working, the energy sector, the manufacturing sector, you know, get the security situation under control through several means, you know, the physical intervention, then the economic intervention.
You need to tell us in specific. We are now here for you to break it down.
Specifics now.
Okay.
You know, the specific you probably never hear from the other candidates you'll be speaking for with after today. It is for us to get back to work. I want to put electricity to start working in this country, and if we have 24/7 electricity, you will grow the GDP by, I think economists will be worried as to how to calculate that. If you do that, you will, of course, improve security as well. And you can bring manufacturing back, like my friend was saying about the social adjustment program that just prepared Nigeria to be a dumping ground for
I'm not interrupting for the sake of interrupting. I want us to take these things as you talk about them one by one. Let's start with electricity.
Yes.
Government tried to run our electricity.
Yes.
Decided that it didn't work, unbundled it, kept transmission, and privatized distribution and generation. People argue corruption within the system, the way the privatization was done. There's a whole lot of reasons why people think that didn't work.
Yes.
What will you do differently that would give Nigeria power?
You see, if the government hadn't privatized electricity, it would be difficult to make the argument that we need to renationalize our electrical grids. They are so important you can't give it to people who are buccaneers. What has happened to all our electricity
so you will nationalize
absolutely. We are taking
distribution.
We are the ones
generation.
We are the ones still funding the privatized. You were talking about generation. Generation is also largely privatized.
Yes, but the only thing that isn't privatized is transmission.
Exactly. So what do you think happens? You sell to them, government builds generating power stations. You sell to them at giveaway prices. You still have to give them waivers to import whatever they want to import. You still have to give them bank guarantees, government guarantees. You still have to get the CBN to give them grants to do what they, and yet you are in darkness. The government previous to this one spent $60 billion, you know, trying to fix the electrical system.
Okay,
they
so
can't.
If you take it back and renationalize it, how do you solve the problems that made privatization look attractive at the time that government decided they were going to privatize
Because
power?
government was just doing trial and error. That's why they were in charge of it at the point, and later they privatized it.
Are you dismissing the lack of efficiencies, the tendency to corruption?
That's what I'm talking about. One of the things I said when we started this is we're changing personnel. I'm going to be president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, not the people who don't know what they are doing. And I'm going to be the chief hiring officers for the best human resources you can find on it, who are Nigerians, who will come back and make it happen here for us. Okay. So we have the people already who can make this country work. We keep making it sound like we don't have Nigerians who can make things work. But when you sell electricity generating plants to Nigerian big men with their big political connections, then they go and import Indians.
What I'm hearing is
Philippines. And you say, what is there? What is there that we cannot do? Why did we have a country that's 60?
Okay. What I'm hearing is a program of mass sackings. If you ever
nobody is sacking anybody. It was privatization that led to the unemployment you are talking about now.
Okay.
And all the companies owned by the Nigerian government working and not privatized, a lot of people will be employed today. Government would have employed more people in those factories.
Okay.
But the people who you are subsidizing, who you are giving grants, who you are giving waivers, how is it that they have not been able to provide more people getting employed? Or instead, they go and bring outsiders to come and run businesses that can be run in Nigeria. Somebody will go to the Niger Delta, bring a Filipino to come and be doing underwater welding. When there are people in the Niger Delta who sleep inside water.
Before we go to break, Before we go for a break, I just wanted to share a little fact with you, and then we'll go on a break and we'll continue when we come back. In the history of Nigeria, electricity generation peaked for the first time to over 5,000 megawatts, September this year. Did you know that?
It was rainy season. Why not?
No, but it had never happened before.
No, it happened.
So when you dismiss,
let's make it clear.
Even when
let's make it clear. It was not privatization that made it peak.
Okay.
It was that the rainy season was very
But we've had rainy seasons for the last 16 years.
Let the rainy season be over and tell me you have capacity to generate 7,000 megawatts of electricity. You are transmitting 5,000 and you want me to celebrate that. What happened to the last 2,000?
No, I'm not asking you to celebrate. I'm just telling you the highest it has ever been.
Rainy season comes, electricity goes up. Our electricity is based on hydropower generation, largely, because we haven't been able to get gas to fire all the gas fired.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask you to allow us to take a quick break. When we come back, we carry on delving a little bit further into what you intend to do with the economy and perhaps get to hear a little bit more from Haruna Magashi. Don't go away, you are watching The Candidates.
Daria Media, in association with Kadaria Entertainment, presents The Candidates, a presidential town hall meeting series where the presidential candidates of the 6 leading political parties tell us about their plans for the country. Join Kadaria Ahmed as she leads us into the world of these candidates from the 17th to the 23rd of November 2022. This very important program will be streamed on FRCN, Radio Now, DSTV, NTA, Facebook, YouTube, and more. This is a town hall meeting you shouldn't miss. Tune in. Let's hear from the candidates.
Choosing where to study is one of the biggest decisions you will make in life. So, it is important to get it right. At Coal City University in Enugu, Nigeria, we pride ourselves on providing students a stable academic calendar and education of international standards. Coal City University gives students incredible personal attention and support. You can enroll in our regular programs and obtain a degree exclusively awarded by Coal City University. Alternatively, you can enroll in our international pathway programs, which will enable you earn 2 degrees in 4 years from Coal City University and Delaware State University, United States. Visit www.ccu.edu.ng. Coal City University. Education for self-actualization.
Welcome back. You are watching The Candidates, a Daria Media Town Hall series brought to you with the support of the MacArthur Foundation and in partnership with the Nigeria Television Authority, Cabal Entertainment, YouTube, where Nero is on standby to help us with engagement with the candidates. Hello, Nero.
Hello, Kadaria. How you doing? I can see that it's really getting interesting in the studio there. Okay, let's go straight to...
We can't hear Nero, so we can see him.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, we can't hear him here in the hall, so the candidates need to be able to hear him.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Can you hear that, Mr. Sowore?
No, very.
No, he can't hear, so, okay. All right, while they're sorting that problem out so that we don't waste time, are there questions in the studio in here? No? Okay. Oh, there's a question, okay. Please tell us your name and ask your question. Yes.
My name is Omoyele Stephen, I'm a broadcast journalist. My question to you is, give us 3 points, because even with the power question, for example, you haven't told us how. You've gone back and tell us the problem of when, even when it was in the public sector, when I was growing up, there was UP-NEPA, so even in the public time and when it was not privatized, we still have power issues. So tell me 3 points now, how you're going to solve the insecurity issue in Nigeria currently.
Specifics they're looking for.
Yeah. First, we must understand what is driving insecurity in Nigeria. It's because people have not had opportunity over these years. We haven't invested in our people. And we now have people who are completely cut out of the benefits of existence and citizenship in this country. And so to solve the security problem, first and foremost, people must think beyond just the idea of shooting at people who are terrorists or bandits. Understand that Nigeria's security problem have various dimensions to it. If you look at the map of Nigeria, look at the northeast, the reason is terrorism. The northwest has banditry. You go down, there's militancy. You go to the east, there's insurgency. And then there's general crime. But the biggest insecurity facing Nigeria are government officials who are fueling poverty and engaging in corruption, because that's how we got here in the first place. But for me to solve it first and foremost, and I'm sorry to say this on national TV, if it requires bringing in mercenaries into Nigeria just to end the kind of biting insecurity we have now, so that people can even have a chance to sleep and rest at night, I'll do it. That's number one.
Okay,
the second is to start rebuilding our military and security agencies. I'm sitting with 3 days ago, I was sitting with all the major security agencies in this country at the police headquarters in Abuja. And I tell you, one of the most pathetic things I heard from the table, but I'm not going to mention the name of the officer, they were whining over the fact that the U.S. was declaring that there's going to be attacks in Abuja, and it has to do with U.S. politics. And I'm looking at the man and say, why didn't you take action? You are the one who's supposed to tell the U.S. to be ready for evacuation because there's insecurity, but the U.S. is telling you, you kept quiet, and you are here complaining that the U.S. has reasons, extraordinary reasons why they told you that, because you all have failed. So personnel must also change, and we must ensure that...
You don't have confidence, is what you're saying, with the current people running
in
Nigerian
addition,
security.
and I want to say this, the Nigerian security armed forces do not have a commander-in-chief. That's the #1 position within our command structure for the security agencies.
So she asked for 3 things.
We don't have anyone.
Mercenaries, you said.
Yeah.
Rekitting and retooling the army.
Including remuneration, retraining, collection of intelligence, processing of intelligence. But finally, and I must make this clear, without putting a social security system in place, without wiping out or at least reducing inequality, without investing in education, you can't do anything about insecurity. China has more guns than Nigerians. What eventually solved the insecurity problem in China is social investment in their people. They have empty apartments.
Have you calculated the cost of your specific actions, the cost of mercenaries, the cost of retooling, rekitting,
I have done that.
And how you would pay for it? What numbers
I have done that, and I've come to the conclusion that it actually costs less to do what I need to do than what is costing us now for doing nothing.
For doing nothing.
Or doing the wrong thing.
Where will you find the money?
Wherever they are finding the money to do the nonsense they are doing now, stealing. You understand?
Okay. Before I go to the quick remote location, Madam Magashi, you are from the north, and of course we now have the northwest has become a basket case, just like the northeast, because of the kidnappings. We've seen the pastoralist clashes, etc., etc. As someone who's sort of living that life, surrounded by people who are facing insecurity, is there anything more that you would encourage your party to do, or you within your party you are discussing, in addition to what Mr. Sowore has said he will do?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
I have said this before. These insurgents, kidnappers, bandits, where have they come from? From the very society, from our community. They did not cross the border and settle in Nigeria and started shooting people anyhow and stealing people. So it is very important for a government to understand the nature of the society. What is the cause of this insurgency? What is the cause of this banditry? In recent days, we have seen two incidences. Let me mention them. One of the bandits, kingpins, was turbaned as a traditional ruler in Zamfara state. He came to the palace, he was turbaned, he offered interview to some specific journalists. Another incident is that recently the infamous Bello Turji, which is the most common name of bandits, he came to the town and attended a wedding fatiha of a relative of his. After he left, there was an attack and he lost some relatives actually. So if these bandits, these terrorists have roots in our society, they communicate with our people, they interact with our people, I believe the government needs to come to the community, get to the root of these people and understand why are they into this and proper solutions to that.
Okay, let's quickly run to because I'm really keen that we get all 6 places to talk to the candidates that we have here. I don't want it to become an interview. Ibadan, we're coming to you. Nero, good evening. Can you hear us now? Yeah, Neron's mic, which is so, Ibadan was so crystal clear yesterday. What's happening to Ibadan? We can't hear him in here. Okay, let's go straight to Bayero University, Kano. Can Kano hear us? Today we seem to have big technical problems. I apologize for that. Okay, audience questions for Mr. Sowore? None? There's, yes.
Good evening, Mr. Sowore and Dr. Magashi.
Thank you.
My names are One Christiana Ifeanyi from the disabilities communities here in Lagos. My question is, sir, if you become the president of Nigeria come 2023, what are your programs, in terms of social protection for people with disabilities in this country, and your agendas for the inclusion of PWDs in your governance? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you for coming here today. And one thing I've hated so much about Nigeria is that people with disability, people we call special population, have always been used as a signboard for occasional intervention. But look at what you guys give to this country in terms of pride in the Olympics. You are the ones who have likely won the most gold in this country. But after we collect the gold from you and we do the paparazzi as usual, we abandon you. Let's start thinking about policy. I've never seen a government boss in this country that has a ramp for this, people with disability to get into the bus or get off. Not even the federal government building has a ramp that I know of for you. So part of our social security policy is to ensure that all of you are known and well documented and are given the support you need to survive in our society. What I mean is that not only do you deserve cash transfers on a regular basis, in fact, on a 2-weekly basis is what I would recommend, but you need to have opportunities to go to schools wherever you
us into the world of these candidates from the 17th to the 23rd of November 2022. This very important program will be streamed on FRCN, Radio Now, DSTV, NTA, Facebook, YouTube, and more. This is a town hall meeting you shouldn't miss.
Another thing, yes. No, let me finish.
No.
That constitution, let me tell you this, and I'm going to ask you to do your research.
Yes.
That 1990 constitution was so bad that a portion of it was found to mention America in it because it was copied from, part of it was copied from the U.S. Constitution.
That is not my understanding. I have never heard this. I don't know my understanding.
There are a lot of things you don't know that I know. That's why I'm running for president.
Okay, the things that are on the record officially about,
but this is true.
With all seriousness, the things that are on the record.
Serious. So what I'm saying is that if you want all these great things for restructuring to be put in that constitution,
Toby was the person charged. Is his committee that put together that constitution. My understanding of the way it worked is that they went around the country, took a lot of input from multiple stakeholders.
We're talking about 1999 constitution now.
Yes, came back
not
and recommended. 79 was put together, but you are mixing up things. You are mixing up things. And you know what you are doing. You know exactly what you are doing.
Nikki Toby was the chairman of the Constituent Assembly put up by Obasanjo, if I'm right. That was supposed to make a constitution.
And they came back and said
that's what
that the consensus was 79 with amendments.
No,
and that was what was passed and what we now use. Anyway,
you should have put fact checkers here. So
you want a new constitution, a brand new constitution.
Brand new, yes.
How are you going to achieve this?
The people of Nigeria deserve one. And it is their own wish that is paramount.
I'm asking about the how.
Yes.
People want a lot of things. The issue is the how.
All these other presidents of Nigeria have tried to create a constitution. The reason they didn't come into existence is because it did not satisfy their own personal interests. Obasanjo did it, but he wanted it for third term. When it didn't happen, they threw it out of the window. Jonathan did it. He wanted 7 years tenure instead of the usual 4 years. When it didn't work, 2004.
That's that's a claim.
They threw it out of the window. We can, if it is the consensus of the people, if the people want a new constitution.
The people have representation in the National Assembly.
Yes, they do. Where I'm going is that the National Assembly have been amending the constitution. If they was working, we wouldn't be talking about constitutional amendments. But you see, even lawyers say it. I think it's a Latin word that you can't build something on nothing. The guy who is in charge of the amendment of the Nigerian Constitution in the National Assembly is the one they caught in London trying to sell kidney. So because he has
I'm sorry, you know, I don't have millions to settle libel And
They can sue me now.
no, seriously.
But this is not like
you have to be really careful about
this. Is not like
no, seriously. I don't have
the guy in charge of constitutional amendments in the National Assembly for the longest time. It's Senator Ekweremadu.
Okay, so if you are,
and it's also a fact that he's jailed in London because
he's not jailed. He's been tried.
He's sitting.
We need to be very careful.
In London.
He hasn't been found guilty. He's been charged.
We can use jail and detention interchangeably.
No. This is the law.
No, but it's true. But there is undergoing trial for trying to take.
Charging somebody is
different. That's why I'm telling you that you are wasting your time trying to amend the constitution using the Nigerian National Assembly.
So let me focus on your vice president, who is also a lawyer, right? And I just want to try and find out that the reason I'm asking about how you intend to do this is that even if you do go ahead and win the elections like you're trying to do, you're contesting, it is possible. Given the, footsteps of AC across the country, it is very unlikely that you have a majority in the National Assembly. So unless you're saying to me you're going to be dictatorial, the question that I'm asking is valid about how you're going to convince members of the National Assembly who have tried to do just constitutional amendments without law because they couldn't get the unanimity they need in sort of state houses of assembly. So how are you going to convince this same set of people to change your constitution?
Okay. Do you want to hear from me or you want to hear from me?
I think I will hear from him, then we'll come back to you.
All right.
If that's okay.
The first step is to have constitutional conference where...
But we've had many before. So there's nothing original about the idea of a constitutional conference.
If you are setting a constitution, at least this 1999 constitution was not a product of any constitutional conference.
You can keep going back and forth. Okay, I'm listening.
Certainly. So you need a constitutional conference where every segment of Nigeria would be participating, would be represented. With that, if you have all what it takes and you come up with a document that is a real representation of the people, then that is when you present it to the assembly for ratification. Probably some few things may be checked and unchecked. Then the next process is having it gone round to the states assemblies. If you have all that, then the constitution would be adopted as a people's constitution.
I'm sure you can see I'm smiling. And the reason I'm smiling is that there are people listening to you and will say, clearly you've never been in government and you don't understand the difficulty of consensus. Because we've seen people try to do this again and again.
They throw things around because they've never, and I understand this about Nigerians. Right. You've never seen or had a set of leaders or any leader that make things work for you. So the standards are very low. So you've never seen anybody that made something work from nothing. I have done it before. I studied geography at the University of Lagos, graduated 6 years later, traveled to America, had a master's degree in public policy. I did not work for more than 2 years. I started a global website, never written before as a journalist. So when I'm telling you that I can make things happen in this country, I can make it happen. I'm one of the few young people in this country. When most of these presidential candidates that are going around now, when they were hiding under their bed and saying that the military leaders of our time should transmute into civilian leaders, following them, or that they should never leave power, we said we would deliver democracy into this country. I was 22 years old. I made it happen 10 years later, not by myself alone, but so there are people who have the mind, the courage, the composure to see into the future and know that a few people can change their world.
Okay, so can I say something? Yes. Can I say something?
So when people throw this blackmail at us,
no, it's not blackmail. The truth is that we know from experience that activism can be determined, driven by one person, but democracy, governance requires a collective effort. And this is really where I think many people say you fall short, because you seem to think you can do things by fiat.
Many people were saying I fall short. In 2019, I was here in front of you in 2019. You guys were laughing at me. The person you elected in 2019 that you were happy about, look at where he put you now. No, true. Are you imagine?
Okay. I have to admit, checkmate. Let me go to remote location before Sowore kills me here. Kano is ready, Bayero University. Say a few things, please, so we know we can hear you. I can see them, but again, I don't know what is going on. with the audio today. It's been problematic.
Can you hear me? We are live now.
We can hear you now. Great. Okay.
All right. Good evening and welcome to Bayero University, Kano. My name is Stephen Enoch. Well, from the conversation, it seems Sowore has a lot of plans for Nigerians, and students here are curious to ask so many questions. We have Amatullah Idris and Hadiza Abubakar. So we'll just take Amatullah first, and then we'll go to Hadiza. Amatu.
Good evening. My name is Amatullah Idris from Bayero University, Faculty of Law. I have two questions, and my first question goes thus. Some candidates have planned to commercialize the educational sector, especially the tertiary institutions. What are your specific plans to ensure that education is accessible by all Nigerians, irrespective of social class or strata? And my second question is concerning the female students of tertiary institutions regarding to inclusivity and affirmative action for women. What tools will you employ to ensure that women are actively involved in various sectors of the Nigerian economy? Thank you.
We have another question from Hadiza Abubakar.
Thank you. My name is Hadiza Abubakar from Mass Communication Department, Bayero University, Kano. So my own is, when Nigeria closed its borders in August 2019, people were optimistic. We were all hopeful that it might work. However, till date, even though proponents believe it's helped in curbing arms influx. Okay, wait. The previous administration, the outgoing administration, they say the aim of that was to protect farmers, reduce arms influx, or to curb arms influx, and at the same time boost our local production. But till date, we're still in hunger. In fact, the hunger is even increased, unlike before. There is more, the level of poverty is very, very high. And at the same time, there were reports that the farmers in the border communities, they became the victims of the border closure, which was supposed to protect them. They said security agencies there used to extort them. They extort them, saying their farm produce are no longer permitted. So they extort millions of naira from them. So what I want to know, dear candidates, what we want to know, dear candidates, is if you were elected, what would you do differently in this situation? How will you eradicate hunger? How will you do more good than harm if you were elected? Thank you.
Those are the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bayero University. These are extensive questions that I'm sure require detailed answers, and I have just a few minutes before the break. So I think what we will do is we will take the quick break, and then when we come back, dive straight into answering those questions. You are watching the candidates, and we are in conversation with the candidates of the AAC. Don't go away. Stay with us.
Daria Media, in association with Kadaria Entertainment, presents The Candidates, a presidential town hall meeting series where the presidential candidates of the 6 leading political parties tell us about their plans for the country. Join Kadaria Ahmed as she leads us into the world of these candidates from the 17th to the 23rd of November 2022. This very important program will be streamed on FRCN, Radio Now, DSTV, NTA, Facebook, YouTube, and more. This is a town hall meeting you shouldn't miss. Tune in. Let's hear from the candidates.
Choosing where to study is one of the biggest decisions you will make in life. So, it is important to get it right. At Coal City University in Nigeria, we pride ourselves on providing students a stable academic calendar and education of international standards. full personal attention and support. You can enroll in our regular programs and obtain a degree exclusively awarded by Coal City University. Alternatively, you can enroll in our International Pathway programs, which will enable you earn 2 degrees in 4 years from Coal City University and Delaware State University, United States. Visit www.ccu.edu.ng. Coal City University, education for self-actualization.
Welcome back. You are watching The Candidates, brought to you with the support of the MacArthur Foundation, airing on Nigerian Television Authority and other partner channels like News Central, Zikoko, YouTube, Radio Nigeria, and Radio Now. Now, before the break, we had a few questions from Bayero University, and before I hand to you, we also have one online question, so I just want to tag it along so that you answer everything all at the same time. This one comes from Daltun Bade, and he says, climate change is one of the major issues Nigeria is facing. Recently, we've seen how flooding has ravaged communities, and this is as a direct result, some of it, of climate change. How will you address this? So if we start with Bayero and then end with that.
All right. With regard to Bayero, I wanted to address the issue of border closure. I was in detention during the border closure hoopla, and I must tell you that the closure of the Nigerian border is the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. You cannot close what you don't have. Nigeria doesn't have border. I don't know why anybody will make such a policy. It's just like building a house, you put a massive gate in front of it, but the gate don't have walls. I know this because I used to pass through the border.
Is it that they have borders or the borders are just porous?
They are porous. They are porous. Even where there are official locations in the border, they are porous, of course, because of corruption. But most of Nigeria, boundaries are just outrightly porous. And I'm not going to say that I will build walls. No. But because part of the problem we have in Nigeria is that as long as our neighbors are poor, no matter how tall our walls are, we cannot drive them out. We should care about our West African brothers because I'm a Pan-Africanist. I'm not going to be close.
They don't believe in immigration control and all that.
The reason the border was closed, as I laid out for, that is the most bigoted thing and also most discriminatory thing against certain businessmen. Because why they closed the border, by the way? I was getting intelligence within the DSS that some businessmen were offered opportunity to still be moving their goods and services across the border. But the poor people were being criminalized for going to buy rice. As she said, after all said and done, which policy did it protect? If you say you want to produce
more rice than
the price of rice go down, you understand? The production of rice will go down. So why did you close the border in the first place? Waste of time. Then somebody also asked about education.
Education, yes.
And education for me is a big deal because I wouldn't be sitting in front of you today were it not for a small, regional educational policy known as free education, propagated by the UPN and the Unity Party of Chief Obafemi Awolowo. When they brought the school to our village in 1980, it offered me the opportunity to start my education in a way that wouldn't have been possible because they used to take only 6 people out of our village to go to secondary school. The day that school was brought to our village, we built it ourselves, and over 150 kids came out of the bush to go to school that day. That's how some of us had.
So you will provide free education?
Free education. I will fund it. My own is access and quality for education because the education we don't invest in today is part of why we are dealing with insecurity and crime at the level. I'm not saying that.
Will you rethink the current education system?
Of course.
Or you are just going to take what we have and make it free?
Everything has to change. The curriculum has to change. I studied geography and planning. Before I knew about the river in my village, I was already known about the 5 lakes in the U.S. Our curriculum is useless. It doesn't focus on getting people educated. It focuses on getting you literate so that you can work for somebody.
Right.
Yes, I want to put education in education and not just literacy. We need to be literate and educated a lot. And part of the reason why some of the questions we're asking that somebody says is not meaning up is our level of education. Otherwise, you can know that people who are determined, people who are desirous of freedom and change can change their country. Every country in the world has changed. Started with some few people who said, we're going to make it happen. You know that in 1787, you know it from history, that the US has some great men, they call them, some of them slave owners, Jews, that wrote the US Constitution. All of us know their names. You don't know the name of the people that wrote the Constitution in 1999 because they even ashamed to come outside and say that they won't wrote this nonsense.
We talked
the
about
military guys. So what I'm saying is that great people, great ideas, idealists, ideologues make great country.
And
that's, we are short of that.
The
we are
passion,
short of that. The last
Mr.
one,
Sowore,
the last question you asked,
yes.
no,
so we need to get through the question because we still have representation. Yes.
Yes. We have been treating women in this country as signage, you know, political parties in particular. Every time there's a rally, women arrive there first with the clothes. They are the ones who will shout and clap. When they are done, they are the ones who clap. But the truth is that women in current election roll, that is the registration of voters, they are 51%.
Yes.
So practically, women can elect a woman as a president. Women should stop begging for percentages from people with whom, if you are 50% of voters, why are you accepting 35% of allocation for women? You know, go for 50% too. Our party,
but I now want to hear what you will do, not what women should do. What will you do if you become president? Yeah.
For me, there's no reason for women to give women allocation of 35%. Let's give them the percentage of their population of the country, or let them take it, because now they have more capacity to even elect leaders than anybody else. So,
but you know, you have to understand though, there are cultural. Let me finish
yes,
now.
You are talking about culture as if you are not on here in the culture.
No, that's the point I'm making, is that there are things that make it difficult for women to take it, like you say. And in countries where these things have been taken seriously, representation has actually helped. So if you look at a place like Rwanda, making a conscious decision to put policy in place, to put laws in place, has increased.
Yes.
So when you say they should just take it, I'm saying that sometimes that's not a practical way to deal with this issue.
It is practical that if elections are legitimate, that is, if they are free, fair, and credible, that women in this country can elect a woman president. They are 51% of the population. They just need a few men, their husbands, boyfriends. They vote for a guy and he wins the election. So if you have that kind of power, why would you be begging for?
Well, we are at a stage where, because of education, cultural situations, the laws, everything. So what will you do if you become president of Nigerian women?
That I will not in any way. So let's start from governance.
Yes.
You know,
so your cabinet, what percentage?
Cabinet is going to be 51% representation.
Okay.
The number of women voters.
That's your commitment.
Compared to men. That's how we're going to do it. That's the statistics and calculation we are going to use.
Okay.
Do we have enough, because before we go, do we have enough women in our party represented? I'll say no. And I should apologize for that. But that's not the reason for us not to have a clear-cut policy that is just and fair towards women.
Climate
and not be
change.
using culture as excuse.
I'm rushing you because
our culture also don't allow men to steal. Why is it that they don't have a problem?
Okay, climate change. There was a question there, and in light of this recent flooding,
a lot of people in this country, for instance, do not understand that one of our biggest crises right now, the herdsmen-farmers clash, started with the climate change issue in the Lake Chad region. The Lake Chad has now dried up to 10% of its size. So the herdsmen that used to have a great time around the Lake Chad area, disturbing number, they had to move southward. Reason, they are selling beef. Beef is a $4 billion industry in Nigeria. Particularly in the southwest where we are today, Yoruba people, my people, there's nothing they don't eat when you bring a cow out and slaughter it. The nose, the ass, the legs, you know, everywhere. But the truth is that because we have not applied the policies necessary to regrow, say, the Lake Chad, we are suffering from that mistake because nobody understood it.
So how will you deal with it?
There's a policy we are put in place, you know, to re-energize the Lake Chad region. And part of it will surprise you. It's very expensive. It's to direct some of the waters from Lagdo Lake that is flooding Nigeria.
And where will
now.
you find the money?
Why are you always asking about where would we find the money?
Because you have to be able to fund things.
When we are funding thieves in this country, billions of dollars, they are stealing it. You are asking me where will I find the money when Nigeria has got money. The problem with Nigeria is not that we don't have money. It is that it's being shared by a few. If the little money we have is being used appropriately, your accountant general will not walk away with 150 billion, and that is not like that.
I agree. I'm not disagreeing with that,
Yes.
Sowore, but if you do become president,
I will become president.
you will inherit almost from day one some of the issues left behind by these people that you are trying to replace, including empty coffers, at least in the first few days. How are you going to, what are the sort of things that you're going to do to find the sort of immediate money that you need? If you go into government today and they say to you, look, we have only 1 month worth of, reserves to import food. And we do a lot of importation of everything we literally consume. We're not selling enough petrol because we're using the rest of it to service debt. These are international obligations that you can't wiggle out of, How will you deal with that?
You see, when I come into power, I'll be coming in prepared. And I'm saying this authoritatively, that I've done my research about money. And in 2015, right?
Okay, we're going to have to take a quick break because your audio has
This time
gone
I want
bad.
to say something good.
I'm
You
sorry,
will
they
take a
can't
break.
hear you. I'm so sorry. They can't hear you.
All right.
I've just been told by the control room that your mic has gone bad. And so rather than wasting your time, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, you can start again from the beginning, I promise. Let's take a quick break. You're watching The Candidates, where we're in conversation with the candidates of the AAC, Mr. Sowore and Malam Magashi, who want to become president and vice president in 2023 and are asking Nigerians to elect them. I want to recap the question we were dealing with so that, for the sake of those who are just joining us. We were having a conversation and I was trying to get a sense from you of where you would find the resources to do all the things you want to say. And you said Nigeria is a rich country. And the point I was trying to make is that if you were to go into government today, there are few things that will happen. You will inherit, for example, a budget that has already been signed. You'll be inheriting all the deficits. You'll be inheriting the debt and a whole bunch of, things that are a little bit messy. And so I think it's a valid question to ask you how you will navigate those things within sort of coming into office.
And I'm saying that in 2015, I was one of the persons that was almost single-handedly responsible for helping government to locate the loot of the monies that were meant for purchasing arms that would have been used to fight Boko Haram. And honestly, the government did recover some of that money, but they were looted. I've done my own research, because I will have a transition team that will go to work as soon as I'm declared winner of the election. And I have found over $6.4 billion owed by oil companies to the Nigerian government. When I talked about it, they said they have paid it down to 2.3 billion now, but that's still solid. The Revenue Mobilization Agency of Government, RMAFC, said there are government agencies, this is not unknown people now, who are refused to return revenues worth 11 trillion naira. Help me add that to 2.1 billion at exchange rate of today. You see, my budget is already being balanced.
But you can't do all of that until they swear you in May.
No, the transition team can reach out to them and say, look, Mr. Sowore is coming in, please
You
pay
don't
up.
have to listen.
Well, if they don't listen...
Because you are not president.
No, they will listen because they know that I've legitimately been elected as president. I'll tell you, during when Buhari came in 2015, for the first time publicly, when he thought he had anything to offer,
What do you mean they? Didn't you campaign? Go ahead.
No, I'm talking, I didn't run it 2015, but I'm saying the NLNG dropped $4.5 billion Nigeria's dividend publicly for the first time to the Nigerian Treasury. And I heard that's how the government started. Since then, they have not dropped any money that we know of publicly. When Sowore comes, I'm sure they will get that message very clearly. So you see that I'm balancing budget. We are not talking about, but because Nigeria's problem with debt is not the biggest problem. Our debt to GDP ratio is one of the lowest. Our problem is revenue to GDP, and we have already discovered where these revenues are leaking and how we can quickly put a lot of money together that can help
when you talk
start
like
the
that,
transition. With regards to the budget, we'll review it. If it needs that we send a new supplementary budget to the National Assembly, we will do that.
Okay. I want us to dive a little bit, but I think I understand University of Maiduguri might be ready. I'll come back to this budget conversation once we hear from University of Maiduguri. University of Maiduguri, you are ready or not?
Yes, we are ready.
Okay. Hello.
Yeah, this is Musa Usman from University of Maiduguri campus here, and the students are keenly following all the discussions that have been taking place between you and Sowore and his running mate. And we have two students who have some questions to ask. I'll start with Yusuf Tara, who has the first question. Yusuf.
Good evening. I want to use this opportunity to welcome the AAC presidential aspirant to this interactive session. My name is Said Yusuf Tara, and my question goes like this. Mr. Sowore, I am your follower on all your social media handles. I follow you on WhatsApp, Instagram, and what have you. In all your life, you have been an activist, fully participated in NSAS protest, a promoter of Revolution Now, and also in some occasions you support the agitation of Biafra. So my question is that, how will you ensure a secure Nigeria without creating social unrest and without violating human rights? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So the second question is from Sado. Sado, please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Sado Banya from University of Maiduguri. The presidential aspirant has addressed the issue of tertiary education. I would like to know what plans he has for the millions of out-of-school children in Nigeria, practical solutions that will bring the menace to an end, and also about insecurity. Several administrations have come and gone with policies and programs, but it's sad that insecurity is on the rise. So I would like to know what new strategies will you implement to curb insecurity? Thank you.
And thank you very much, University of Maiduguri. There are a few questions people have sent via email and Twitter, so I will add them to these questions and then you take it from there. Ozu Emena says, do you believe the unity of Nigeria is negotiable? Valid question, given that from Maiduguri we've heard questions around Biafra. The same person also says the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics says about 133 million Nigerians are poor. How do you intend to lift more Nigerians out of poverty?
Yes, so the first question is the same as the first one you read out, which is the unity of Nigeria. And I think this is where people misconstrue the word unity, as some kind of unbreakable bond for Nigeria. I need to give a little bit of historical background to Nigeria, that Nigeria was not even put together by Nigerians. It was put together as a business by Lord Lugard. In fact, when Lugard was creating Nigeria, he had already created Port Harcourt. And the reason they created Port Harcourt was that they discovered coal in Enugu. So they needed to export the coal. And then Nigeria, Port Harcourt was created in 1912. Nigeria was created finally as one entity in 1914. So I am telling you that a country put together as a business did not become a nation. What are you killing yourself for? I believe that Nigeria can be united with justice. The Northerners are the most worried about the issue of unity. But if you look at the Northerners, they were actually the first to be reluctant for Nigerian independence because they felt like they were not ready.
I think you will find that actually that's an assumption. It hasn't been tested.
No, I'm saying it not to.
No, I'm just saying it's an assumption. There's a maybe you can ask
yes,
your.
I'm not
your
demeaning. What I'm saying is that they put a lot of thought into joining a united Nigeria. That's why they delayed the independence for a few years. We would have had independence around 95, but the Northerners were not. They were thinking about it. They were consulting.
The
So that's the point. So
was
that means that even at the onset, the people on that side of the divide had to be sure that they wanted to join Nigeria. So everybody that came to join Nigeria was forced into that unity. For us to now make the unity happen, we must create a perfect union. That's why I talk about the Constitution, because that's what happened to Americans after the Brits defeated the Brits. They wanted a perfect union because at that time there were blacks, women who were being oppressed.
So the right to self-determination for you is
I completely
sacrosanct.
believe in the right. In fact, if we put it in our Constitution, the right to self-determination, Nigerian leaders will be more serious about governing Nigeria.
So we should have some sort of mechanism that allows for a referendum.
The reason I'm calling for is a fundamental right recognized by United Nations. The reason I'm calling for a new constitution, so that Nigerians can put in that constitution.
And I know that the people in Maiduguri,
Nigeria decide to challenge the unity of Nigeria through a referendum, not that you just walk
violence.
away.
Okay, so I mean, I know that University of Maiduguri questions are waiting, but we've got Ijoma in Enugu, and I just want us to go to her, and then you can combine all the questions together. Can you hear us?
From Coal City.
Oh, it's Ifoma. Sorry, Ifoma. Hi.
Hi. Good evening from Coal City. I'm Ifoma Ajumobi, live at Coal City University in Enugu. And the engagements have been quite insightful. Thank you for the platform once again. The students have questions, plenty questions for the candidates. And we have Grace, Chisom, and Jonathan on standby with their questions. Jonathan, let's hear Jonathan's question.
My name is Jonathan Ani from Department of Microbiology. Sir, what do you intend to do about subsidy?
We'll hear from
subsidy.
Summa right now. Summa.
My name is Summa Obuke from the Department of International Relations. Mr. Sowore, it is not new to anybody that most public office holders have decided to send their children abroad to study. And for this reason, they are insensitive to the plight of an average Nigerian student caused by incessant strikes. Sir, as a former student union leader, how do you plan to put an end to these industrial actions, to these incessant industrial actions in public universities?
Grace has a question.
Oh, I thought Grace, we missed Grace. Oh, okay, all right. Praise.
There's a lot of religious and tribal agitations in our country today. Now, I want to know, most people actually feel maligned or slandered based on your belief. When you become president, or if you become president, what do you want to do about this?
Curtis is also on standby. Curtis, let's have your question quickly.
Okay. Final one from Enugu, and then we'll come back to the studio, please.
Curtis.
Hello, my name is Joshua Curtis DK Jr. So my question is to you, sir. because we know of the SARS era, the things that they do. What will you do differently that the current government hasn't done? And then also, how do you include young minds like my humble self into the governance and also make us able to make decisions for others who are young like us? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a whole bunch of questions.
And I didn't hear some of them, but I heard that of it.
Okay, so we'll start with the ones you heard, and then I will.
We'll start out of the lady who was talking about what we'll do to end the incessant strikes, and the fact that the rich people are sending their children at the expense of those children of the poor abroad. See, this is something I know very well because I track this, and you're a journalist, we used to do this together. I track how much money is spent in sending children of the rich at the expense of the poor to school. We discovered that an average son of a politically connected or politically exposed person going to a school in the UK is spending over maybe £200,000 a year, the big schools. And if you break that down to Naira, it could almost build a building, a structure that has over 6 classrooms that is of the highest standard. They are stealing it from you. That is why I said, as part of our policy, that whereas we have no right to stop anybody from sending their children to school abroad, but they also have no right to steal our money to send their children to school abroad. And as a result, those monies that are retained, we will use it to give study grants to students that are going to school in Nigeria. In Denmark, Norway, students are paid to stay in school to the point that sometimes when they are supposed to spend 4 years in school, they spend 6.
What's the population of Denmark?
No. Stop talking about the population. The population of Nigeria is big. The problem is the population of the thieves, which is not big, but they are taking the biggest of our resources. So we want to stop that. Let everybody who can afford to send their children to school, send their children to school. Is your problem. But don't steal government funds to send your children to school and then prevent students who are supposed to have access to their own national resources.
Please take note
them stay at home.
My follow-up question. And the reason I will ask it now is,
I wanted to answer I don't
want to interrupt.
Let him join our party. This is a youth party. No more ancestors in government when we win.
No more ancestors. Yeah. There are a few more questions I need you to deal with, and when you are done with them, perhaps come back and talk about how you deal with corruption, since you were talking about how to deal with the money. Okay, so somebody asked what your, whether you remove subsidy.
Oh, subsidy.
Yes.
I think we should stop calling it subsidy. Okay. That's maybe will make it easier. That particular name has been demonized. The subsidy they say we have in Nigeria is a subsidy of the oligarchs. The people who are importing petrol alone. When you take crude out of Nigeria, crude after the state has a capacity to get a lot of products, including your hair shampoo. We take our own crude out, we go with a whole crude. When we are coming back with just gallons of petrol, kerosene, jet A1, and that's all. And we see petrol at nose. Our solution is to repair our refineries. And before you shout, oh, Sowore has come again, you are helping one man in Lagos to finish his refinery. But this government
has already said that subsidy is going out in June, so presumably you don't disagree.
I'm not taking, what I'm saying is that whatever the poor people of this country can enjoy from government, the only thing they enjoy, we'll keep it. But we will not allow the oligarchs to add their own bill on top of it. Let me tell you, kerosene is not subsidized. Yes. How is it that it's not giving us any palliative? Diesel is not subsidized. Why is it that we are not getting anything in return for unsubsidized diesel? So they just criminalize and demonize subsidy as if you can't support your citizens.
So
I'm not from Nigeria. Let me just put this in. I'm not a US citizen, guys. Hear this out. While COVID was going on, the US government sent me 3 checks. I was in detention. They were sending me money. I'm not even their citizen. Is that not subsidizing your citizenry? Our own leaders, they were hiding palliatives. No, it's true. From the people, until the people went and liberated the palliatives in Jos. Did you not hear that? So we cannot keep saying that government does not subsidize. Government subsidizes everywhere. In fact, the most subsidized people in Nigeria are the elites, the oligarchs.
The problem is I'm not too sure that anybody here doesn't know what the problems are.
I'm giving you. I'm saying I'm.
So talking about what has happened.
Subsidy, but don't call it subsidy so that they make it look bad.
Okay, so
we must support our citizens who are vulnerable. There are 130 million Nigerians who have been thrown into the poverty market. How do you just treat them as if they are nobody?
Is your practical plan? Because I have to assume
I've talked about repairing refineries. You have 4 refineries.
How are you you will carry on subsidy until refineries have been sorted.
And when you fix refineries, you will have more than enough.
How do you ensure that the subsidy, like you said, is not stolen and you only pay for the subsidy that goes directly to the people? I'm asking for practical plans.
Was I not the one who outed all the subsidy thieves on Sahara Reporters in 2004? Did you forget? I know them individually. By the time I come to government, they know that they're out of business. Because I know them. I know all the people who are in charge of stealing subsidy money in Nigeria. I'm not saying this to brag. I know them, they know me. I know what each one of them is stealing. I know people who were importing water into Nigeria under Jonathan, who called it petrol.
Okay.
Did it not happen?
Okay.
That they were prosecuted, they were arrested, but they were never prosecuted till today.
Let me bring in Malam, because another issue that Nigeria seems to have is the cost of governance.
Yes.
You know, a lot of money and resources going to maintain essentially a tiny minority of people. I mean, people would argue a government is essential, civil servants are essential, but perhaps we're not efficient in the way we sort of run our government, etc. What are your thoughts regarding the problem with the sort of cost of governance, and what is your party thinking of doing about that particular problem?
As you said, everybody knows the problem. Cost of governance is high in Nigeria, and it needs to stop. How do we stop it? Nigeria has 3 arms of government. You have the legislature, executive, and the judiciary. Take a look at every arm. What are its functions? What are its divisions? What are its roles? Those under it. And what does it consume? There is agitation that people are calling for scrapping of the Senate for the reason that they consume a lot of resources, and the people think that the country can go on without the Senate.
So I like that you brought it up, because the question is, how do you convince a group of people to commit suicide? Because for you to actually go from having 2 chambers, National Assembly, in the National Assembly, the Senate has to vote to accept to be scrapped. So what is the strategy for convincing them essentially to get rid of themselves?
Convincing the people that brought them to the Senate. They didn't work on their own.
It sounds great, and you get claps for it, but you still haven't told me how. So you convince people, so I'm in Kano and I'm convinced I don't want a Senate, then what? At the moment, what are you going to use? What provisions? How are you can't do it with, unless they pass a law saying they can be scrapped.
Yes, in the first place,
yes.
I am not saying we would scrap the Senate.
That's what I heard.
I think people are agitating for scrapping of the Senate.
Okay, you start working towards it.
Yes, we can't scrap the Senate on our own. We have to convince the people to say, look, we don't need the Senate. In fact, beyond just the Senate, which is the equivalent of all these former governors, it's even the the lower House of Representatives. I think we should make it part-time. That's my position. So that anybody coming there should have another job. Already, they are operating as a part-time lawmaking body. I think the Senate, according to Premium Times, didn't sit for the allocated amount of times that ought to make them a full-time Senate. So they are already practicing part-time work. Let us pay them part-time salary as well. Okay. I would have preferred if someone like Saraki was practicing as a doctor and as a legislator.
I'm wondering why you focused.
Let me ask
you this question. I'm wondering why you focused on the Senate and not the House of Reps. And I'll tell you why. The Senate, unlike the House of Reps, ensures equal representation for every state. So every state has 3 senators, not 4, not 5, you know. So everybody in the Senate, in terms of representation, is equal. Whereas House of Reps, there are variations which many people find unfair. because they're driven by landmass, by population, by that sort of thing. So Kano State, might have more legislators than, say, Zamfara State
so then
Enugu State.
Let's grab the House of Representatives then.
Right.
Yes,
So because I was trying to understand why you chose Senate and not House of.
We came to that conclusion because most of the people in the Senate don't even have any reason to be there. And our goal is to reduce the cost of government. And I also add, apart from cutting the legislative arm into size, because South Korea doesn't have a Senate and they are doing well. Senegal doesn't have a Senate and they are doing well. We also want to reduce a lot of baggages in federal ministries, departments and agencies. For instance, I don't know any reason why Nigeria should have a minister and a minister of state. They are doing essentially the same job. Get rid of the minister of state, keep the minister. A lot of organizations have replicated duties. We wipe them out
again,
and reduce, and this will have impact because we are looking about a compact government. We are not going to deny it. I agree with you completely that the cost of governance is too much and it's very top heavy, and it includes the presidency. And I don't want to repeat it here that they have a fleet of jets that Buhari said he wanted to reduce. He just kept increasing it. So what we are saying is that the cost of governance is too much. I even worry why any Nigeria president needs an Aso Rock, which can be converted to a children's hospital. The president doesn't have a family that's huge enough to be living in that zoo, as they call Aso Rock, that is fenced in 3 places. Whereas if you go to the White House of the US, it doesn't have that many bedrooms. If you go to number 10 Downing Street, I don't know how many bedrooms are there, but there are not as many as number 7, one building in Aso Rock. So I'm just using that as an analogy on how much we spend wasting our money.
So presumably when you get in there to determine what should go and come, there would be some sort of process.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying that the constitution needs to change. For instance, if you don't change the constitution, we can't scrap. You look at the beautiful argument you presented now about the House of Rep. You have just put them in trouble. Now we are going to be taking
because I wasn't presenting it to make an argument. I was just trying to understand the business, because the House of, let me tell you the advantage that they have that the Senate doesn't have, is that they are also where you find minorities that are never represented anywhere. So communities,
all of the arms have to go.
Right?
That's in our view.
We are running fast out of time. So let me take a quick break so that when we come back, we take a few more remote locations and we try and wrap up this conversation. You are watching the candidates. The candidates of the AAC, Mr. Omoyele Stephen and Malam Magashi. Don't go away. The candidates, and we're going straight to the University of Abuja, where Ruth is on standby. And please note, we can only take 2 questions, and if you can keep them tight, we really would appreciate it, because we're running fast out of time.
At the University of Abuja, I must say it's been an interesting conversation there with the AAC candidates. The students are excited to ask some questions, and like you said, we'll take just 2. So I'm starting with Kuram Sokojas. Kuram?
Hello, good evening. I'm Kuram Sokoga from Economics Department. My question is, In view of the present state of economic recession, inflation, the degradation of the naira, and balance of trade deficit, what are the steps you want to take as incoming president to solve all these alarming issues that has brought about economic breakdown? Secondly, in consideration that we practice the Keynesian economic system, as to the fact that governments play a key role in controlling the forces of demand and supply and market participation, what are the steps you have to put in place to improve government's functionality in major sectors of the economy, such as production industry sector? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's quite a handful. Raphael is next. Raphael.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Echobu Raphael Ikwebe. My question is, if and when you are elected as president, what are the steps you are going to take to raise Nigerians' confidence in government? As an average Nigerian has lost total confidence in government and governance and their ability to ensure and provide basic responsibilities, perform their basic responsibilities of theirs are met, which include or not limited to social amenities, security of life and properties, and all that, etc.
Thank you very much, University of Abuja. And because we have two other universities, so we don't get confused, if you dive straight into those answers, keep them short, and then we take the other universities.
The first question is, the amount of intervention governments can get.
So the economy keeps coming up again and again.
And government has a duty to manage the macroeconomic policy of the country. And when we say this, we also have a duty to ensure that our monetary policy is tight. I mentioned it when we started that Nigeria's central bank is just a glorified, bureau de change right now. We will change that when we come in to ensure that we have a central bank team, not just a governor, who understands what the monetary kind of policy we need to stabilize the naira in particular.
But it does need to be independent, so you won't interfere.
Independence, that's what I'm saying. The government has a role to play in taxation. It has a role to play in generating revenue. The central bank is the bank to the government. Yes, that's what the central bank is practically about. This independence we are talking about.
To drive monetary
policy. They are supposed to drive monetary policy
on the sort of what is supposed to be
they're supposed to be in charge of rates, and the things that can help your currency be solid and have purchasing power and have its ability. They also control our foreign exchange processes and foreign reserves. But government cannot just say, well, the central bank is independent to the point that
the criticism of this central bank and the reasons that many believe they got it wrong is that actually they were too close to government.
It's true. That's what I'm saying is BDC now. If you know the central bank governor, you can just get dollar in one.
Again, I can't be sued though. So I'll come to you.
Why are you talking to a fellow journalist like yourself?
Let's carry on. So answering that question on the economy.
So what I mentioned earlier, that in all of this, one calculation that people don't make when it comes to Nigeria, they eliminate completely or refuse to discuss standard of living. All of this, fiscal policy, monetary policy, all kinds of policies are supposed to make life better for the citizens. And that is where the conversation about purchasing power parity comes in. What is it that if I want to buy this shirt in the US is a cost? And what will it cost me in terms of naira to buy in the country? If I'm not producing it, it doesn't matter whether I like it or not. It costs me more because my currency is weak.
Okay, so and there was a question sort of related to that, which was about productivity.
Yes,
at the moment,
but you can't get into product. You can't have a production argument in Nigeria without fixing the power sector, the energy sector. And that is why I keep discussing how to bring light and discuss about energy and energy transition and to look at a variety of energy sources and how we can be a real participant in international market for these
Magashi,
products.
Can you take the question on confidence and how you can rebuild confidence in governance and government, given where we are today?
To be brief, what do the people want from the government? If they get what they want or what they desire or what they expect, they have confidence. They need peace security. The provisions of Chapter 2 of the Nigerian Constitution are provided to the citizens. If the citizens have a food to eat, have a shelter, have an education, they won't need anything, and they would respect the government that supplies that.
So it's a question of basically if the government keeps the side of the bargain, the contract between citizens.
Yeah, the social
okay.
contract.
I have to go now quickly to the University of Ibadan, and Nero is joining us. Hello, Nero. Good evening.
Good evening, Kadaria. I hope you can hear us now.
Yes, at last. Happy to see your face and to hear your voice.
We go all evening. Anyways, a very interesting conversation there, and I'm going to go straight to the point. We have two questions from the University of Ibadan right here. And I have, first up, Odion. Odion, step up for the question.
Okay, good evening. My name is Odion Sani Ebiaye. I'm an electrical engineering student from the University of Ibadan. First of all, some might argue that the last time Nigeria was this divided was before the civil war. I mean, that's in the religious and the ethnic sense. Now, you said something about those who want to break out of Nigeria can seek legal means. But how did you, Sowore, want to promote unity in Nigeria? That's the first question. And second question is, in recent times, we've seen a lot of thousands of Nigerian healthcare workers travel out of the country for greener pastures. And reports even show that the ratio of doctors to patients in Nigeria is 1 to 9,000. So how do you plan to combat this problem? So do you want to carry out healthcare reform, and how do you want to go about that? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and the second question is coming from Olajuwon. Olajuwon.
That will be the third question.
First and foremost, I would like to state that talk is cheap. Most of the answers to the questions have not been quite specific. So I will implore you to be very specific in my questions to you now. For instance, you were asked how you were going to stop stealing of subsidy, but you didn't quite give an answer. You just said they will know they're out of business once you are in. How exactly do you plan to get them out of business, knowing fully well that corruption fights back? And again, I will move quickly to education. I would like to know how exactly you're going to prevent the recurrence of ASU strike in very specific time. And if you become the president of Nigeria, Mr. Sowore, what will be your stance on no work, no pay, as the federal government of Nigeria is stating now? Because it is very clearly stated in the Constitution, in the Trade Dispute Act, that government might decide not to pay workers who do not work. And again, very quickly, Mr. Sowore, on climate change, President Muhammadu Buhari has said that he's calling for more urgent investment for facilities in Africa. What exactly is your stance on climate change? And last but not the least, last but not the least, what exactly is the economic policy? What is your monetary policy? What exactly is your fiscal policy? Please, our appreciative very
Nero, I'm afraid, thank you very much for that. With less than 15 minutes to go, can I urge you to be really short with your answers? And I can prompt you one by one again if you want.
Maybe you can prompt me, yeah.
Yes, how would you promote unity? You've said you believe in the right to self-determination, but if you are president, how will you promote unity?
Well, if you give justice to all the sectors, nobody will want out of Nigeria. You see, people who talk a lot about Biafra, they also forget that the Yorubas also have their own agitators. But there are people in the Middle East, there are middle belts who also want out of Nigeria. Yeah. But what people have never talked about is that a lot of Nigerians have actually mentally seceded from Nigeria. How do you calculate? The Japa syndrome is because of people have seceded.
Okay, so
the only people who are trapped.
Healthcare. This straight into the next question.
So, what's your next question then?
Healthcare. With doctors leaving and all of that, what's your plan for solving healthcare?
What we need to do specifically is to invest in healthcare. And I have said it, we need to have a healthcare system that accommodates all. And it is not socialism, it's a right thing to do, it's compulsory. It's investment. You have to invest a sizable amount of your budget or revenue in ensuring that hospitals are working, drugs are available, you have an insurance. Ours is an insurance policy, but it's not the one that is going to be exploited or stolen by, through fake HMOs.
Okay, so at the moment there's a new healthcare act that the president has, brought into law, which makes it completely compulsory for every person who, employs more than anything from 5 up to provide health care for their person, and if you're an artisan, you're also by law supposed to go and sign on some sort of HMO. What will you do differently from what already exists?
I think it should be the duty of government, our government, to provide healthcare for all.
Okay.
And not leave healthcare to employers who the burden of healthcare provision might force them to either be forging.
So you would be finding the
we
money.
still have a contributory system to it for employers, of course, but it won't be such that you ask employers to take over the entire healthcare of their workers. What about when the employers then fall out of business? Who takes care of the employees?
The person from Ibadan that said talk is cheap is not satisfied about the specificity of your answers. He said, for example, how are you going to stop them from stealing? Especially since we know corruption fights back traditionally. He's also asked you to discuss the ASU issues and whether you respect this idea of people don't get paid unless they
I don't respect the people. When the strike is just,
yes,
you have to pay the strikers. It's not, they didn't even want to do this. It was government that forced them to. If you want to start stopping the pay of people who are not working, I think the president will be number one because he barely work. It is true. Yeah. So, and the truth is that these are things that escalate the problems. You can't keep escalating the problem by engaging in things that make our higher institutions are too important to be played with technical parts of laws. Let's put the money they ask for. They are specific about how much they want. Let's find the money and give it to them and make sure.
But their demands go beyond money. There are 7 demands that ASU is making of the
and the demands have been the same since the 90s. I was in the University of Lagos when Jega was president of ASU.
So you wouldn't rethink education at all, like some people are saying, create a situation where universities become independent, they are able to get endowments, and
education is too important.
Because
let me
in other places where education works, education is not as cheap as it is in Nigeria.
Education,
so people actually, if you look at how much we pay to train doctors,
it's not also as expensive as they think. In the 90s, the IMF and the World Bank came to this country and said, don't invest in education. It's too expensive. It's waste. Let people pay for the education. But the same people came back and recruited 8,000 doctors from the education they didn't want us to invest in 1990. This is hypocrisy.
Victor
you cannot compare education to anything.
And I don't really want to waste their time because they're the last school we're going to. But you still haven't talked about, the thieves, yes, who are stealing the subsidy, yes, but talk is cheap. How do you intend to fight them?
I don't belong to the category of talkers. If a student, he should go and do research about me at the University of Lagos. I'm not a talk is cheap person.
Okay, let's go to Victor, who is who's in Bielsa, and join our last remote site because they've been very patient. They've been listening.
Thank you, Kadaria. Very detailed conversation there at the studio, and to start a lot of comments here at Bielsa Center. We have 2 questions that will be asked. I will call on Honorable Elliot Suno to ask the first question, then we'll move to Honorable Adawale. Yeah, good evening. I am honorable chief of us to spend the summer, the former legislature. Kindly answer this question. Without a big operation, the bulk of the wealth of our country comes from the crude oil in the Niger Delta region. And for donkey years, the entire environment, the ecosystem, has been abysmally polluted, destabilized, defaced, disintegrated, and bastardized. And our people impoverished with the oil blocks predominantly in the hands of people outside the region. Should you become the next president, how would you redress this repugnant imbalance? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take one more question quickly, please.
Okay, good evening. My name is Amari Utemetro, public servant. First and foremost, I want to congratulate the candidate for putting himself forward. It's not easy. I think that the right time has come for good people to equally put themselves forward. Briefly, my question president, what will you do with the presidential mercy program? But recently, the news is everywhere that this government have decided to write down the presidential mercy program under 6 months without the government keeping inside of the bargaining. And this is causing a lot of problems in the Niger Delta. So what will you do with the presidential mercy program? Thank you.
Thank you. Victor, if I could ask you, Victor, can I ask you to quickly recap that second question because it wasn't very audible. We could barely hear him.
Okay, the second question, by allowing, says that the amnesty program by the federal government, there are news that it will be stopped very soon without any proper plan. If Mr. Sowore becomes the president of Nigeria, what are his plans on the issue of the amnesty program?
Okay, so thank you very much, Victor. 2 quick questions. The Niger Delta produces the bulk of the wealth. They pay, the highest price, no development. What are your plans on redressing that imbalance? And on the issue of the amnesty program?
I'll start with the amnesty program. I think it's become a cesspool of corruption. But I like the program and I'll develop into a concrete.
So like the principle of
yes,
it? And what
I like the
principle
principle of it because I brought peace to the Niger Delta. But that peace cannot last on the basis of this ad hoc-ish intervention in Niger Delta. The amount of money you are giving to amnesty can be used to build universities that will train lots of Niger Deltans. Locally. And you could have finished the roads, the East-West Highway that has now been washed away. A lot of development could have come from that. What I would agitate for is for the Niger Delta region to get a larger portion of the oil resources. So to that extent, you can say that I'm biased on the side of resource control. But anybody that is listening to me today should know that the word resource is dynamic. So if one day the northern part of Nigeria is producing solar energy, electricity for the rest of the country, don't come and tell me that they don't have a right to also get a part of that resource.
What I seem to be hearing you saying is that you're not quite 100% how to deal with this issue and you're still thinking it through because you think it's dynamic.
I'm from the Niger Delta. Do you know that?
I know.
Yeah, so I could have qualified as a militant. so I don't understand the problems. Because part of what we should understand here is that problems that are well understood, there's no reason for us to be parading any level of intelligence that the solutions to Niger Delta for a lot of Nigeria, but it's not a thing you can resolve on a TV interview for 2 hours. With regards to those who say be specific. If you want to see specific, ask for a manifesto. And we have manifesto online, by the way, on Sowore 2020.
And by the way, some of your manifesto issues seem to be at odds with your personal issues. So page 32 of your manifesto, for example, they talk extensively about carrying people along in order to get things done. But when we listen to you sometimes, we almost feel like you are marching at it alone because you think you alone can do it.
The fact that I'm passionate about how fast Nigeria should have developed doesn't mean that I don't carry people along. I believe in people. I've been on the side of the masses. The injuries I've suffered the most, I've suffered because even when I could have been comfortable, I come back to take on battles with others. So you can't claim that we don't carry people along when we organize some of the biggest
Okay, we have just about
from time to time.
5 minutes to go. So I want to ask one final question of you and then use the remaining 3 minutes, if you answer it quickly, to allow you to wrap up and sort of give your final message to the electorate. I noticed that when you set up the party AAC in sort of 2018, you started out as chairman. Then you became the presidential candidate and therefore had to step down as chairman. You lost elections and then became chairman again of the party. And you've now stepped down again to run for the elections. How come? Is it that there aren't people qualified enough to chair your party? Because the optics of it look like this is a Sowore party, as opposed to sort of something that encompasses a diversity of people, if you keep moving from chairman to presidential candidate and back again?
I'm glad you asked, and I want to answer you directly. We set up a party in 2018, And we sort of decided in agreement with INEC that we'll have interim leaders until we go to a convention. And the convention of the party was supposed to happen after the 2019 election because we didn't have much time. When the election was over, the party was hijacked.
Yes, you didn't get a chance to enter into all that trouble.
So we couldn't go to convention.
Right.
And I was arrested when we were protesting against and going to court about it. And there was no opportunity to do any election until we won in the Court of Appeal on June 2nd. So when we won, elections were 6 days away. We had to run around the country to set up. That's why I stepped down again. As soon as this election is over, we will go to a proper convention, and I promise I'm not going to contest as party chairman again.
Okay. Literally in 30 seconds, Malam Magashi, a final opportunity to speak to Nigerians, the electorate, and tell them why the duo of you and Mr. Sowore represent the best option for Nigeria.
I will urge Nigerians to read our manifesto. There is something very important that we have not talked, but we don't have a time. Something that is sticking on the knob of the northern part of Nigeria, that is the Almajiri system. We have a very vast, versatile and workable framework for the Almajiri system to work. I assure the northerners that if we get into power, there would not be Almajiri that would be begging. We would separate that aspect of Almajiri that is studying religious knowledge and the begging.
Yeah, Mr. Sowore, 30 seconds, your final words to the electorate.
You know the meaning of Almajiri is somebody who travels to seek knowledge, not somebody who begs. Yes. Yeah. So he's very clear on that. But Nigerians have seen the difference. I'm glad that I ran in 2019, and I wish you elected me and did not select somebody who didn't win the election to lead you. This time around, we're looking forward to credible, free and fair elections, and we hope, having heard from us, those of you who are undecided, that you know who the right person is to lead this country to liberty. We want to put liberty on the ballot.
Mr. Omoyele Stephen and Haruna Magashi, thank you so much for joining us. And that's it for the candidates for today. Tomorrow, we sit down with Dr. Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso and Bishop Idahosa of the New Nigeria People's Party, the NNPP. Please join us. And I want to thank our partners, Kabal Media, NTA, FRCN, Zikoko Citizen, News Central, KAFTAN TV, so many of them actually whose names I can't remember, Silverbird, Radio Now. Thank you so much for taking this conversation out. Trust TV. See you tomorrow. It's now time for the network news of the NTA. Have a good evening.